The descent of the Odyssey into Xylos' atmosphere had been anything but gentle. The research vessel, cutting edge by Galactic Federation standards, bucked and shuddered against the storm winds that seemed determined to reject its presence. On the command deck, Dr. Eris Thorne gripped his console tightly, his blue-tinged Lorian skin paling further with each violent jolt. "Atmospheric stabilizers at maximum," reported the pilot, a Centaurian whose 6 limbs worked in perfect synchronization across the control panel. "I've never seen weather patterns this chaotic outside a gas giant." Precisely as expected, Dr. Thorne muttered, partly to himself. "Xylos has been classified as a death world for good reason." Commander Eva Rostova stood behind the pilot's chair, her stance wide to maintain balance against the turbulence. Unlike Thorne's obvious discomfort, her expression showed only focused concentration and perhaps a hint of fascination. "Odyssey to command," she spoke into the ship's communication system. "We've entered Xylos' upper atmosphere. Conditions match previous probe data. Proceeding to establish stable orbit before deploying Trident for surface approach." The acknowledgement from Galactic Federation Command came through with significant static. Eva turned to Dr. Thorne, who was already immersed in the environmental data streaming across his displays. "Dr. Thorne, your preliminary assessment?" The Lorian scientist straightened his posture. "Commander, everything confirms our existing classification. Perpetual atmospheric disturbances, extreme pressure gradients in the deeper ocean regions, volatile tectonic activity. This planet is fundamentally hostile to complex life as we understand it." He gestured to the viewing portal where Xylos' vast, storm-tossed oceans stretched beneath swirling cloud formations. "Water worlds like this are evolutionary dead ends. Too unstable, too violent for anything beyond primitive single-celled organisms." Eva's eyes narrowed slightly as she studied the planet below. "Yet here we are, the first crewed mission ever sent to a death-classified water world. Command must have had reasons beyond confirming what we already know." "Politics," Thorne said dismissively. "The human contingent on the Council has been pushing for a re-evaluation of several death worlds. They find our classification standards too conservative." Eva allowed herself a small smile. "We tend to be curious about places we're told not to go. Curiosity without proper caution leads to extinction, Commander." Before Eva could respond, the science officer's voice cut through their conversation. "Dr. Thorne, we're detecting something unusual near the equatorial region." Both officers moved quickly to the science station. The specialist, a Vestin with crystalline features, pointed to an anomalous energy signature pulsing across her screen. "It's biological in nature, but with structural consistency that suggests." The officer hesitated. "Organization." Dr. Thorne leaned closer, his skepticism evident. "Impossible. Run diagnostics on the sensors immediately." "Already did, sir. Twice. The new long-range biodetectors are functioning perfectly. These signals are real, rhythmic, consistent, and complex. They're coming from what appears to be a relatively calmer region we've designated as the Archipelago Sea." Eva studied the data, then looked at Thorne. "This warrants closer investigation." The scientist backed away from the console, shaking his head. "We're here to confirm the planet's hostility and collect geological samples, Commander, not to chase sensor ghosts. With respect, Doctor, unexpected biological signals on a supposedly dead world are precisely what we should be investigating." Eva's voice was firm but measured. "I'll prepare Trident for descent. We'll drop into the Archipelago Sea and conduct a proper survey." "Commander, I must formally object. The Trident isn't designed for." "The Trident is the most advanced deep-sea craft ever built," Eva interrupted. "Reinforced hull, pressure-adaptive shielding, and enough sensor equipment to satisfy even your stringent scientific standards." Her eyes met his, unwavering. "And according to our mission parameters authorized by Federation Command, unexpected biological phenomena are priority 1 for investigation." Dr. Thorne's protest died on his lips. She was right about the mission parameters, a concession the Scientific Council had made to secure funding for the expedition. "Very well, Commander," he finally conceded. "But I insist we follow the strictest containment and observation protocols. No unnecessary risks." Eva nodded. "Agreed. We depart in 6 hours. Prepare your equipment and team accordingly." As the crew dispersed to prepare for the surface mission, Eva remained at the viewing port, gazing down at the swirling blues and whites of Xylos's vast oceans. Something was alive down there. Something that shouldn't exist according to everything the Federation believed about water worlds. The thought sent a shiver of excitement down her spine, a feeling that had driven her career from military pilot to exploration commander. Sometimes you just had to dive in. The Trident cut through the churning waters of Xylos's archipelago sea like a metallic predator, its external lights illuminating a world that few had ever thought worth exploring. Through the reinforced viewing ports, the crew stared in stunned silence at the underwater landscape unfolding before them. "This shouldn't be possible," Dr. Thorne whispered, his face pressed close to the observation panel. "The biodiversity, the complexity." "Recording everything on all channels," reported the science officer. "Bioluminescence levels are off the charts." Outside, the waters teemed with life. Not just simple organisms, but a vast ecosystem of creatures in all shapes and sizes. Most extraordinary were the massive, coral-like structures that rose from the seabed, pulsing with biological light in complex patterns. The water itself seemed alive, filled with microscopic organisms that created curtains of soft, shifting illumination. "Take us closer to that central formation," Eva ordered the pilot. "Maintain safe distance, but get us detailed scans." The Trident moved forward cautiously. As they approached the largest coral structure, their sensors began registering the same energy patterns that had been detected from orbit, stronger now, clearly emanating from deep within the formation. "It's almost like a heartbeat," Eva observed, "but with complex harmonic variations." Dr. Thorne, despite his initial skepticism, was fully engaged in analyzing the data streaming across his console. "These coral formations aren't natural growth patterns. There's symmetry, repeated structural elements. Almost like architecture," Eva finished for him. Thorne didn't contradict her, which Eva took as significant. The Lorian scientist adjusted his environmental suit nervously, even though they were safely inside the Trident. "We should deploy the exploration drones," he said finally. "Get closer readings without risking the vessel." Eva nodded her agreement. Launch drones 1 through 4. Standard search pattern, full sensor suite active. 4 sleek, torpedo-shaped drones detached from the Trident's hull and moved into the water, their propulsion systems barely disturbing the surrounding environment. The crew watched on their monitors as the drones transmitted images and data from their exploration. The first 2 drones approached the coral structure's outer perimeter, scanning the intricate formations. The imagery showed honeycomb-like chambers and tunnels within the structure, suggesting internal spaces that could serve as habitats. The third drone descended toward the seabed near the structure's base, where several thermal vents released streams of bubbles and heated water. "Energy readings are strongest near those vents," reported the sensor operator. "Drone 3 is detecting consistent temperature regulation. The water around those vents is being channeled somehow." Dr. Thorne leaned forward. "Natural convection currents couldn't create that kind of stability. Something is manipulating the thermal flow." "Doctor," Eva said quietly, "would you still classify this planet as an evolutionary dead end?" Before Thorne could answer, the alarm sounded. On the monitors, Drone 4 suddenly spun wildly before its transmission cut out completely. "Drone 4 is offline," the operator announced tersely. Last telemetry showed a rapid energy surge, and then something moving toward it. "Play back the final seconds," Eva ordered. The screen showed the drone's approach toward what appeared to be a darker opening in the coral structure. Then, a blur of movement, something large and fast, followed by interference patterns across the screen before the transmission ended. "Drone 3 is experiencing similar interference," the operator reported. "And now Drone 2 as well." They watched helplessly as, one by one, the remaining drones went offline. The last images from Drone 2 captured a fleeting glimpse of something massive and dolphin-like, but with appendages that no Earth dolphin possessed. "We've lost all drones," the operator confirmed after Drone 1 went dark. A heavy silence fell over the Trident's command cabin. Dr. Thorne was the first to speak. "We need to retreat to the Odyssey immediately. These structures are clearly defended by some form of predatory marine life. The risk to the Trident is unacceptable." Eva remained calm, her military training evident in her measured response. "We haven't come all this way to retreat at the first sign of local wildlife, Doctor. The fact that something disabled our drones with such precision suggests intelligence, not just predatory instinct. All the more reason to withdraw," Thorne insisted. "We're not equipped for first contact scenarios, especially not in this environment." Eva studied the sensor readings, considering their options. The drones clearly triggered some kind of defensive response. Our technology may be perceived as threatening. She looked up at the nervous faces of her crew. "We need direct observation, something less invasive than our drones." Dr. Thorne's expression shifted from concern to alarm. "You can't possibly be suggesting a short, tethered dive," Eva stated firmly. "Myself and one other crew member. We use the lightweight environment suits designed for moderate pressure environments. Minimal equipment, just recording devices and emergency supports." "That is absolutely out of the question." Thorne's voice rose uncharacteristically. "The drones are destroyed in minutes. The toxicity levels alone could. The water composition has already been analyzed," Eva countered. "No toxic elements our suits can't handle. And whatever took out the drone's attack technology, not us directly. Sometimes the most advanced approach isn't the right one, Doctor. This goes against every established protocol for Death World exploration." Eva stood straighter, her authority clear in her stance. "As operational commander with on-site discretion in unexpected scenarios, I'm authorizing this dive. The lightweight suits will allow for better maneuverability than the drones, and our biological presence may not trigger the same defensive response." She turned to her second-in-command. "Lieutenant Zhou, you're with me. We'll use the airlock in Section 3. 90-minute tether, emergency retrieval protocol in place." Dr. Thorne continued to protest, but Eva had made her decision. Within 20 minutes, she and Lieutenant Zhou were in the airlock, the lightweight environmental suits conforming to their bodies like second skins. Unlike the bulky protection Thorne preferred, these suits were designed for limited exposure in moderate pressure environments, prioritizing mobility over absolute protection. "Remember," Eva said to Zhou as the airlock began to fill with water, "we observe only. No sample collection, no interference with local organisms. We're just eyes and ears." Zhou nodded, his expression a mixture of anxiety and excitement behind his visor. "Yes, Commander." As the outer door opened, revealing the luminous waters of Xylos, Eva felt a moment of doubt. But beyond that brief hesitation lay the explorer's drive that had brought humanity to the stars in the first place. She activated her suit's propulsion system and moved forward into the alien sea. The sensation was nothing like the simulations. Despite the suit, Eva could feel the pressure and movement of the water around her. The bioluminescent microorganisms swirled around them, creating trails of light that followed their movements. It was beautiful in a way no instrument reading could capture. They moved cautiously toward the coral structure, maintaining constant communication with the Trident. Every observation was recorded and transmitted. The vibrant colors, the intricate patterns, the way certain sections of the structure seemed to pulse in synchronized rhythms. "Commander," Zhou's voice came through her helmet comm. "Look at the base structure. It's not natural coral growth." Eva adjusted her position to see what Zhou was indicating. He was right. Up close, the coral revealed itself to be an engineered construct, a sophisticated blend of biological materials formed into functional components. In places, they could see how the structure channeled water currents and thermal energy from the vents below. This is bioengineering, Eva transmitted back to the Trident. Not random growth. These structures are technology, just not the kind we're used to recognizing. They ventured closer, and that's when they saw them. Large creatures moving through the water with graceful efficiency. Roughly dolphin-shaped, but with additional limb-like appendages, their bodies shimmered with patterns of bioluminescence that changed as they moved. Most striking were the manipulator appendages. Not quite arms, not quite tentacles, but clearly designed for fine manipulation. Xylan, Eva whispered, spontaneously naming the creatures. They're using the thermal vents, harnessing the energy somehow. The creatures seemed aware of the human observers, but kept their distance, communicating with each other through patterns of light and what Eva assumed were sonic pulses too low or high for human hearing. They're intelligent, Joe said quietly. Look at how they're working together on that section of the structure. Eva was about to respond when one of the creatures suddenly changed direction, moving rapidly toward them. In the same moment, the Trident's warning system blared in their comms. Seismic disturbance detected. Commander, return immediately. The water around them began to vibrate. The approaching creature wasn't attacking. It was trying to herd them away from the structure. Other Xylan were rapidly evacuating the area. Back to the Trident now, Eva ordered, activating her emergency propulsion. They barely made it back to the airlock before a violent tremor shook the water around them. Once inside the Trident, the evacuation alarm was already sounding. What happened? Eva demanded as she rushed to the bridge, still dripping. Underwater earthquake, the sensor operator reported. Unexpected in this region. We thought it was supposed to be tectonically stable. Nothing about this planet is matching our expectations, Eva replied. Status report? The news wasn't good. The quake had triggered a massive underwater landslide that had severely damaged the coral structure and the Trident itself. Main propulsion was offline, long-range communications were dead, and worst of all, the hull had sustained minor breaches in 2 sections. We're trapped, Dr. Thorne said, his voice hollow. The Trident can't surface in this condition, and the Odyssey won't know we're in trouble until we miss our check-in. Eva checked the life support readings. How long? Oxygen recyclers at current capacity. 36 hours, the engineer replied. Less if we can't repair the power fluctuations in Section 4. A grim silence fell over the bridge. Then the sensor operator spoke up. Commander, they're coming back. On the external cameras, dozens of Xylan were approaching the damaged Trident. They surrounded the vessel in a loose formation, their bioluminescent patterns shifting in complex sequences. They're scanning us, Eva realized, using some form of sonic imaging to assess our condition. Dr. Thorne backed away from the viewing port. This is it. They're preparing to attack while we're vulnerable. I don't think so, Eva said slowly. Look at their patterns. They're coordinated but not aggressive. If they wanted to destroy us, why wait? We're already crippled. The largest of the creatures moved closer to the main viewing port, its body pulsing with intricate light patterns. It hovered there, seemingly making direct eye contact with Eva through the reinforced glass. It's trying to communicate, Eva said with growing excitement. We need to respond. She moved to the external lighting controls and began to manipulate the Trident's floodlights, creating simple patterns inspired by what she had observed during their dive. On, off, sequential flashing, rudimentary but deliberate. Dr. Thorne watched in stunned silence as the creature outside responded with its own light patterns, more complex but with recognizable repetition. It's working, Eva whispered. The exchange continued, patterns becoming gradually more complex on both sides. The other Xylan maintained their position around the Trident, occasionally adding their own light sequences to the conversation. After nearly an hour of this primitive communication, the lead creature performed a series of movements while projecting specific light patterns toward a section of the seabed that had been newly exposed by the landslide. It's showing us something, Eva said. That opening wasn't there before. The creature repeated the sequence, more insistently this time. I think it's offering to lead us somewhere, Eva said slowly. Through that underwater tunnel. Dr. Thorne found his voice again. That's absurd. You can't possibly interpret these random behaviors as not random, Eva interrupted. Watch the pattern. Direction, movement, invitation. Basic communication transcends species, Doctor. The sensor operator spoke up. Commander, I've been analyzing the tunnel entrance. It appears to lead toward a major thermal vent system, one that's considerably more stable than our current position. And the creature's sonic emissions are consistent with what we might interpret as guidance tones. Eva made her decision. They're offering us a way out. We can't repair the Trident, we can't contact the Odyssey, and our life support is failing. We need to trust them. You're proposing we abandon ship? Thorn was incredulous. For what? To follow sea creatures through underwater caves? This is madness. I'm proposing we accept help from an intelligent species that seems to understand our predicament better than we do. Eva replied calmly. We take the emergency dive suits, essential equipment, and follow their lead. The alternative is to sit here and die when our oxygen runs out. The debate was fierce, but in the end, Eva's authority as mission commander prevailed. The crew prepared for evacuation, gathering portable equipment and donning the lightweight dive suits. Dr. Thorne, still protesting but without alternatives to offer, reluctantly suited up as well. This goes against everything I was taught about first contact protocols, he muttered as Eva helped him adjust his suits. Settings. Sometimes the rulebook needs to be thrown out, Doctor, she replied. Sometimes you just need to swim. As the Trident's airlock flooded for the final time, Eva led her crew out into the alien waters, where the Xylan Seti waited patiently to guide them into the unknown depths. The journey through Xylos's underwater world was like nothing any Federation scientist had ever documented. Eva and her crew, led by their Xylan Seti guides, traversed a network of hydrothermal tunnels that seemed partly natural and partly engineered. The massive primary creature, whom Eva had begun to think of as the navigator, led the way, while others flanked the humans protectively. Dr. Thorne, despite his initial terror, had become transfixed by what they were witnessing. His suit's recording devices captured everything. Vast gardens of bioluminescent algae cultivated in geometric patterns, elaborate structures that channeled and filtered water currents, entire ecosystems built around hydrothermal vents. Without the protective shell of the Trident between him and this alien environment, he was experiencing Xylos directly for the first time. This challenges everything we thought we knew about aquatic ecosystems, he transmitted to the others as they passed through a chamber where Xylan Seti were using their manipulator limbs to tend what appear to be carefully cultivated coral beds. They're not just surviving in this environment, they're engineering it, controlling water flow, temperature, even the bioluminescent properties of their surroundings. Not primitive at all, Eva replied, just different. They've developed biotechnology instead of metallurgy and electronics. The journey wasn't without dangers. Twice they had to press themselves against tunnel walls as powerful currents surged past. Once a predator, something like a giant squid, but with metallic-looking plates along its body, approached the group, only to be driven away by a coordinated display from several Xylan Seti. Each challenge required the humans to adapt, to learn new ways of moving through water, of reading the subtle cues their guides provided. After what seemed like hours of travel, they emerged from the tunnel network into a vast open space that took their breath away. It could only be described as a city, a sprawling metropolis built around and within the largest hydrothermal vent system they had yet seen. Thousands of Xylan Seti moved through the water in what appeared to be organized patterns. Structures rose from the seabed in concentric circles around the central vents, each pulsing with bioluminescent light that served both as illumination and, even now understood, communication. It's beautiful, Lieutenant Joe whispered. Even Dr. Thorne was momentarily speechless. When he finally spoke, his voice had lost its clinical detachment. We've been so wrong, he said quietly. All our classifications, all our assumptions about what constitutes advanced life. We've been judging the galaxy by such limited standards. Their guides led them to a structure near the center of the city, a spherical building with multiple openings where water flowed through in carefully regulated patterns. Inside, to their surprise, was a large air pocket. The Xylan Seti gestured for them to surface within this space, cautiously removing their helmets after confirming the air was breathable. Likely a byproduct of the abundant algae throughout the city, the humans found themselves in a chamber clearly designed for communication. The walls were embedded with bioluminescent organisms that could be manipulated to create complex light patterns, and the acoustics amplified sound in specific ways. They've studied surface dwellers before, Eva realized. They know we need air. Over the next days, or what felt like days, time was difficult to track in the eternal twilight of the underwater city. Communication evolved rapidly. The humans learned to interpret the Xylan Seti's light patterns and sonic emissions, while the aquatic beings proved remarkably adept at understanding human gestures and simple symbols. Through this developing language, the humans began to understand their hosts. The Xylan Seti were an ancient species that had evolved in Xylos' oceans millions of years ago. Rather than developing tools from metal or stone, they had mastered biological manipulation, cultivating and evolving organisms to serve specific functions. Their entire civilization was based on symbiosis with their environment rather than extraction from it. They viewed land-dwelling, air-breathing species as fragile and limited, creatures that required massive technological support systems just to survive. When the Trident had appeared, they had initially perceived it as a potential threat, but upon observing the humans inside, had recognized them as intelligent beings worthy of respect. Their philosophy centers on consciousness, Dr. Thorne explained after a particularly intensive communication session. They believe all self-aware beings are connected through what we might call a universal consciousness. It's why they helped us, not despite our differences, but because of them. They value diversity of thought and experience. Eva had formed a particular bond with the navigator, who seemed to hold a leadership position among the Xylan Seti. Through patient exchanges, she learned that their society had no concept of war or conflict as humans understood it. Resource competition was managed through complex symbiotic relationships and deliberate population control. Their greatest challenges came from Xylos itself, the volatile tectonic activity and extreme weather that had led the Federation to classify it as a death world. They don't fight the planet, Eva observed. They adapt to it. They've learned to predict seismic events, to construct their cities to flex rather than break when earthquakes hit. They don't see Xylos as hostile, just powerful. The humans, too, had to adapt. They learned to move more efficiently through water, to recognize warning signs of dangerous currents or predatory creatures. They even cautiously sampled algae foods provided by their hosts, nutritious and surprisingly palatable. Dr. Thorne, perhaps changed the most by the experience, spent hours documenting everything he observed. Their biotechnology could revolutionize our understanding of medicine, agriculture, even space travel, he told Eva during a rare, quiet moment. They don't see technology and biology as separate domains. It's all one integrated system to them. How many other death worlds have we written off? Eva wondered. How many other civilizations have we missed because they don't build radio transmitters or spacecraft? Too many, Thorne admitted. I was part of the problem. My entire career has been based on classification systems that now seem hopelessly narrow. Their philosophical discussion was interrupted by a sudden flurry of activity among the Xylan Seti. The navigator appeared, its light patterns conveying urgency. Through their rudimentary communication system, it indicated something approaching from above. The Odyssey, Eva realized with a surge of hope. They must have sent a search party when we missed our check-in. Indeed, the Xylan Seti had detected a craft moving through the water, a rescue shuttle from the Odyssey, searching for signs of the lost Trident crew. What followed was an extraordinary cooperative effort. The Xylan Seti, understanding the humans' desire to reunite with their ship, mobilized to guide the rescue shuttle to their location. Several hours later, The astonished rescue team found themselves being led by a procession of dolphin-like aliens to an underwater city where their missing comrades waited, not as prisoners, but as honored guests. The return to the Odyssey was bittersweet. As Eva stepped back onto the ship's deck, she found herself already missing the fluid grace of movement through water, the symphony of light and sound that had surrounded them in the Xylan Seti city. "Commander Rostova," the Odyssey's captain greeted her. "Your report on what happened down there is going to make quite an impression on Federation Command." "More than an impression," Eva replied. "It's going to change everything." In the following days, as the Odyssey remained in orbit around Xylos, Eva and Dr. Thorne worked tirelessly on their official report. What had begun as a standard survey mission had transformed into the most significant first contact event in recent Federation history. Thorne, who had once been the strongest advocate for the Death World classification, now became Xylos's most passionate defender. His report detailed the Xylan Seti civilization in exhaustive scientific detail, their biology, their biotechnology, their social structures, and communication methods. He formally proposed a new classification system for non-traditional life forms and civilizations within the Federation database. "We need to acknowledge that our criteria for advanced civilization have been embarrassingly anthropocentric," he argued in his conclusion. "Intelligence, technology, and culture can develop along radically different paths than those we've observed in terrestrial or terrestrial-like species. The Xylan Seti represent not a primitive adaptation, but an alternative path of advancement, one that may, in many ways, be superior to our own." Eva's report complemented Thorne's scientific analysis with practical recommendations. Human adaptability, willingness to take calculated risks, and openness to unconventional communication were critical factors in establishing peaceful contact with the Xylan Seti, she wrote. Future first contact protocols should emphasize flexibility and direct engagement rather than over-reliance on technological intermediaries or rigid procedural hierarchies. When the reports were transmitted to Federation Command, the reaction was immediate and polarized. Conservative factions, particularly those representing water-averse species, expressed skepticism and concern about the implications. But the evidence, Thorne's meticulous documentation, the sensor data from the dive suits, the testimonies of the entire crew, was irrefutable. After weeks of debate, the Federation Council issued a new directive for Xylos. Its status was changed from prohibited access to protected observation and respectful contact. Future missions would prioritize individuals and methodologies proven effective, those willing to swim, literally and figuratively, into unknown waters. As the Odyssey prepared to leave Xylos's orbit, Eva stood at the viewing port, watching the swirling blues and whites of the planet below. Dr. Thorne joined her, his posture more relaxed than she had ever seen it. "The Council has approved my proposal for a permanent research station in orbit," he informed her. "With regular surface missions using the communication protocols we established. And the navigator? Will they participate?" "They've already designated a group of Xylan Seti to serve as official intermediaries. They're as curious about us as we are about them." Thorne hesitated, then added, "The Council has also requested that you lead the training for new contact teams. Your approach, your willingness to dive in, has been officially recognized as the new standard." Eva smiled. "And you, Doctor? Will you be returning to your comfortable laboratory on Lorien Prime?" "Actually, I've requested reassignment to the Xylos Research Initiative," he replied, surprising her. "I have a great deal more to learn about adjusting my perspectives." As the Odyssey's engines powered up and the ship began its departure sequence, Eva took one last look at the water world below, no longer a death trap, but a cradle of unique life and civilization. The universe still held countless wonders, and sometimes the best way to discover them was to shed the protective suit and dive into the unknown.